近一点。好，今天看的第13页到6页，注意。这个看这两个。
Good evening, brothers and sisters.
Good evening.
We hear the Theosophical jargon. The two phrases, the macrocosm and the microcosm. We have seen the other day briefly what macrocosm was all about. Briefly. Today we'll try and touch upon microcosm, which is man. Briefly again. Each volume runs to about more than 700 pages of Madame Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine. We were trying to concise and trying to present the salient points. Madame Blavatsky quoted Rigveda and used the authentic translation of Nasadiya Suktam for introducing the cosmos, the birth of cosmos, or the universe, as we say. The second volume of the Secret Doctrine, which we call it as Anthropogenesis, she quoted the verses of Kali Vela, a folk sacred lore of the Finland or Finnish language, and she took the help of the very good translation by Crawford, and she quoted that epic. That epic depicts man's heroism, his capacity to forge forward or move forward and to achieve and attain success in the journey, which is achieving the goal of perfection. What does the folklore talk about? The folklore talks about the Vela of the man that would lead humanity to attain freedom from the bondage, and to achieve perfection. The folklore describes the entire movement in runos, R-U-N-O-S. Runos are like stanzas of a poem. The folklore inspired the population of Finland, and they fought for the freedom, and they got their freedom from the Russian rule. So this is the background of the folklore which she introduced, because she wanted to talk about what our man is capable of. And we are concerned this evening with the genesis of man, his evolution over long periods of time through successive root races. So this evolution, this process, enables the man to reach the ultimate goal, which is perfection, and perhaps identifying with the individual soul, getting identified with the universal soul, where Madame Blavatsky talked about that concept in the third fundamental proposition in the first volume, in the growing. So we move to the beginning of the anthropogenesis, the preliminary notes which she has written before she went on to the topic as such, the primary or preliminary notes. So Madam Blavatsky gives here, like she gave in the first volume, 3 fundamental propositions. She also talks about 3 propositions. Of course, these propositions which she wrote did not meet the approval of the science or the theories propounded by the modern civilization, and they were also not accepted by the religious groups which had a lot of faith in dogma and emphasis on rituals. So these fundamental prepositions, as she talked about in Anthropogenesis in the preliminary notes, they also did not perhaps meet the approval of science and religion and this then modern civilization. So we give below the 3 prepositions as she wrote. The first one talks about the simultaneous evolution of 7 human groups on 7 different places on the globe. The first one talks about simultaneous evolution of 7 human groups on 7 different places on the globe. This is the first one. I was wondering how to put this across. Last evening we went to something which is very close to the airport, Joel. My brother drove us there. And it had various levels. From the top level, we could see one more level down below, another level down below, another third level down below, where a lot of activity was happening. I just thought of what perhaps could be used as an example of how the simultaneous evolution takes place at different places. My friend who makes these slides, who lives at Adyar, near Adyar, he has put the world map and also put another slide there. The text has come below, which talks about the first simultaneous evolution, first preposition which talks about the simultaneous evolution of 7 human groups on 7 different places on the globe. And the second preposition talks about the birth of the astral before the physical body. Normally when we discuss the principles of the bodies, we talk the physical first and then go to the next. But she is talking about the second preposition. She says the birth of the astral before the physical body, and the astral being the model for the physical. The astral being the model for the physical. Anabesant, I'm sure all those people who have gone through the study in consciousness, also talks about the nervous system, the building up of nervous system, which started with the astral and then it got copied or it drifted into the physical. So this is what she is talking about, the astral being first formed and then that happens to be the model for the physical. And the third proposition said man preceded every mammalian, including anthropoids. Man preceded every mammalian, including anthropoids. Anthropoids were apes resembling man. That was in the animal kingdom. So she says man preceded. she quoted Hermes, the thrice greatest, from the book The Divine Commanders. The book of Hermes talked about 7 primeval men. Primeval meaning again the men of the earlier time of history. HPB refers to the Kabbalah system, which talks about the 7 kings. The races of that time got destroyed as there was no distinction which was there between the male and the female. They died and reincarnated as men and women later on. So the cross-reference she has given from Hermes and also from Kabbalah system about what she talked about the primeval men. And the 7 regions of the earth saw the birth of 7 men. These men received light or the energy from the planets. The first one got it from the sun, and the second one, we call it in Sanskrit Brahaspati, meaning Jupiter. The second one got from Jupiter. The third one got from Venus, we call it in Sanskrit Shukra. And the fourth one from the moon, we call it Soma. And the fifth one from Saturn, which we call it as Shani. The 6th and 7th from the remaining 2 planets, which are Mars and the combination of Rahu and Ketu. This is how she says the 7 regions of the earth saw the emergence of 7 men, and these men received the light or the energy from the various planets. HPB also drew references from Puranas of Hindu system to support the 3 propositions which she made. For example, she quotes Bhagavata Purana where addressing the half man and half lion, Prahlada, the prince, the son of Hiranyakashipu, who was just then killed by the avatar of Vishnu. Prahlada talks about how Vishnu took the shape of a pig to begin with, a big pig, and then also the fish and the tortoise and the rest of it. The fourth one was this half man, half animal. So Prahlada talks about that, and Bhagavata Purana also talks about all these various avatars, which she has quoted to give credence to her theory. So we have the root races. For a tree, I think there is a main root and then there are subroots. So similarly, for each root race, we have sub-races. So the root races are 7 and the sub-races for each root race again 7. So this is how the archaic records talk about the root races. So it was said in the beginning, humanity or men will appear or come through these 7 root races. Each of these races will have, as described some time back by giving an example of a root of a tree, 7 sub-races. We have already seen 5 of these root races, and we have perhaps 5 by 5 means 5th sub-race or the 5th root race we are going through, and 4 root races have already completed their work on this plane. Completely doesn't mean that they are completely extinguished. The seed of the previous race comes into the next race. So the fifth root race is on now, and we also have information about the sixth and the seventh root races. They are yet to appear because we have the 5 by 6 of the earth and 5 by 7, and then perhaps, yes, the sixth root race. So we have 5 by 6 and 5 by 7 to exhaust or go through. HPB has given 12 stanzas in volume 2 of Anthropogenesis. And each of the stanza talks about a particular development which took place. So I talked about, in so many places, the constitution of man. And we normally describe the upper triad, and which is immortal, the upper triad which is immortal. The lower quaternary is one which is temporary, which would perish at the end of each incarnation at different stages. We know the principles, like prana, for example, is housed in the etheric double. Kama, she mentions here to refer to the lower mental, which is full of base emotions. Astral, the desired body. The physical, the gross body. She refers to Atma, but that doesn't belong to our plane. Man has access to earth where he lives with a physical body. Man has an astral body. He lives in this body maybe every night when he sleeps, and also after death he lives in the astral. Man also earns the right to live in Devchan. Devchan is a place where there is no dukkha. Dukkha is the sorry state of affairs. The no dukkha is always present experiences which are available there for a person who earns his visit to Devchan or stay in Devchan. And then now she talks about the monad. Monad basically means Atma and Buddhi. The universal monad, the individualized monad. The monad, Atma and Buddhi. And when conjoined with Manas, and that passes through the mineral kingdom and the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, and then enters the human kingdom. Before getting into the mineral, of course, we know the elementary essence. The elemental kingdoms are also there, the three. So, the mineral, the vegetable, the animal, and then the human. The story of man, his birth, etc., it is said started some 50 millions of years ago. Again, all this from the text which I picked from Secret Doctrine. In the story of creation, we talked about spirit and matter, the two aspects of the one reality. In the story of creation, we talked about spirit and matter, the two aspects of one reality. In the story of man, we find the spirit, which is called consciousness sometimes, and the form, the rupa, the form. These two, again, are interdependent, and progress depends on the substantial contribution of the consciousness to the form. In one of the places, form is called as upadhi. Upadhi means a vessel. So the vessel has to be there so that life moves on. That will hold the prana, that will hold the combination of consciousness and the prana. So she talks about Upadhi. Evolution, as we all know, is a continuous process. This scheme of evolution is one of the many evolutions which we will see. But she talks about three different evolutions for us to understand. They are interwoven, she says, interblended, interwoven. The evolutions are spiritual, intellectual, and physical. Spiritual, intellectual, and physical. So this is what she has talked about as far as evolutions and the type of evolutions are there. There could be many more evolutions which would be there. But she talked about these three being very essential for the growth of man. There was the presence of the superconscious beings, superconscious beings, evolved beings before man appeared on the scene. There was the presence of the superconscious beings or evolved beings before man appeared on the scene, says the secret doctrine. We talk about Brahma Manasa Putras coming from the planet of Venus. They appear always young, Sanaka, Sanandanadi. So those people come from the other planet, Venus, which was there. So they are the people who are much more evolved, and they were there to see how the man appears on the scene. And she compares at one place the process of evolution with an evolution of a flower. It starts off with a bud, but before the bud, there is a seed. So where from the seed has arrived is a question. So the bud becomes a flower, and the flower becomes a fruit. Fruition takes place. And she puts a question, where from the flower gets the fragrance, color, etc. And from where from the taste enters into the fruit. We have a fruit which perhaps is there in Singapore also, coconut. We have some water within it. How that water got in there? It's in a way a miracle. We don't perhaps consider it as a miracle, but it's a miracle. It is said all these evolutionary processes are part of the divine plan. So she says same is the case with man. Some people are very fair looking people, some are perhaps darker versions of the same man. Some are looking like giants and some are appearing like pygmies, small, miniature figures. So all these are captured or part of the divine plan. HBB says the seed of the man must have pre-existed in the parent or in the ultimate, in the Parabrahman. She has that sort of a thought which goes to, because there is a seed which is required, and she says it is there, the parent has that seed, maybe it's Parabrahman, who is the father of all. And she says from the spirit of the universal logos, everything has emanated. That's what the secret doctrine says. So we'll slowly go towards the root races, find out what constitutes a root race. The first root race, as given in the book, these men were called Chayas. Chaya means shadow. The meaning of Chayas is shadow. So, these beings did not have a physical body. So they were called Chayas. Or it could be, maybe I'm walking in the sun, a shadow comes there, something like that. Very hazy, not clear. That was the man of the first root race. And she says both the man and the globe were in the astral, they were not in the physical. Both the man and the globe were in the astral, not in the physical. So the same position continued in the second root race too, the status quo maintained. In both these root races, men did not have the physical bodies. But they were rudiments, they were perhaps the rudiments of the future man would appear. The future man would appear, maybe a small component of that, a small amsha of that would come as a seed. So as far as the first and second root is concerned, there is nothing tangible as far as the form is concerned in these first two races. In some places she says they were also called elementals or bhutas. Bhutas, it has got different connotations in the Indian context, but here she means as another synonym for elementals. Like for example, we talk about panchabhutas. So it's what she talks about is elementals, like fire, earth. They are all called five elementals. So they were called panchabhutas or elementals, not panchabhutas. Bhutas are elementals, these first two races. So the men in those two races had no solid forms. So to say, they can be called perhaps arupa, formless men. Only astral evolution was there for them, that was in progress. And these chayas, these first root race was formed with the help of the lunar pitris. Lunar is, moon. Pitris are ancestors. Lunar pitris, they were the people who were responsible for the first root race to appear. And one more interesting information, the first root race was self-born. They were born as per the will of the deity or the adept or perhaps the Jnani Chohans. Jnani Chohans were also there to see the evolution of the elementary kingdoms. So perhaps because of their help, they were born, the first root race. So self-born, that's what the book says. The second root race, as said earlier, men still stayed put in the astral. They did not come down to physical. And when the time of reproduction arrived, or it was there around the corner, the men dropped their miniature of itself in the form of an egg, which was sticking to their body. The parent, that aura, will have that extra growth, which will look like an egg, and when it's mature, the egg will fall, break, another man comes up. That's how the reproduction took place. So the germ, as long as it was sticking to the parent, would feed on the aura or the strength of the parent till it becomes good enough to be delivered as an independent small one. So this is how the reproduction happened. the first root race simply disappeared. They melted. There was no death for that first root race. They simply melted, just disappeared. The second root race were called sweat-born. They were called the sweat-born. Svedaja, we call it in Sanskrit. There is also another name which has been given in the history or given by Madame Blavatsky. She calls them Hyperboreans. Hyperboreans, the second root race. The first yielding place to the second root race, first, as I said some time back, melted away. The second root race came into its place, and the sweat-born overtook the self-born. There were no remnants or fossils of the first two root races. There were no remnants or fossils of the first two root races, as they did not have physical bodies. Then we'll move to the third root race, the Lemurians, as they were called. It is said the first physical man was a Lemurian. It formed from the buds of the previous root race. Some buds or some essence of that root race was there. From that, the third root race happened. And the first physical man is a Lemurian. That's what. And this race procreated in the beginning through first an egg-like substance, which after a period of gestation, egg broke and a small animal like man appeared. That was one way of procreation. And then Madam says there are three ways in which the third root race started procreating or doubling its population. Early period through sweat, the middle period of the race through an egg, and later period of the root race, sex-born. Interestingly, the sex division happened in the Lemurian race. The appearance of man and woman happened in the third root race. After the third root race passed through more than half of its life. In fact, the fifth sub-race of the third root race saw the appearance of man and woman. So, the coming together of man and woman, the procreation took place in the third root is the third way. The first one was sweat, the second one was through egg, and third way of procreating was through the combination of man and woman. Man and woman thus coming into the life or coming into appearance, the humanity as such, is about 18 million years old. That's what the book says. At this stage, at this particular stage, the previous races disappeared completely. One more important development of the third root race is the principle of manas, mind or intelligence, became a reality in the third root race. So the principle of manas or mental intellectual capabilities became a reality in the third root race. It happened somewhere in the midpoint of the third root race. Man was given the capability to think or perhaps use the faculty of manas So we have seen the first root race and the second root race did not have the physical bodies. The third root race, Lemurians, had a physical appearance. And there were three ways in which that Lemurians procreated. First, to begin with, through sweat. Second, through an egg. Third, with a combination of man and woman. That's how the three races, three root races. Now we move to the fourth root race, which belong to the Atlanteans. The Atlanteans evolved out of the nucleus of the third root race. The fourth root race belonged to the Atlanteans. The Atlanteans evolved out of the nucleus of the third root race of the Lemurians. And they were belonging to the land. First and second were astral, as we have seen. Third and fourth, they were physical. Presently, this land of Atlanteans has gone under the sea, disappeared, and we have in that place of that land the great Atlantic Ocean. The men of this Atlantean root race were of different colored men were there. Some were perhaps brown, some were red Indians, and some were yellow, and some were black. So, men of different colors. Some were red, some were brown, some were yellow, and some were black. And some were gigantic in their personalities, and some were very, very small. Both were there in the fourth root race, appearance-wise. Some were gigantic and the other one very, very small. It is said that the Atlanteans were the pure human race. It is said that the Atlanteans were the pure human race. And they lived on earth. Men and women were there. So procreation happened through unison of the two. Though millions of years have passed since the birth of the Atlantean race, secret doctrine says we still have Atlanteans, though the Atlantean land has gone under the sea and all that. We still have some Atlantean race living with Aryans, who belong to the fifth root race. Aryans belong to the fifth root race. So, the overlapping takes place. The third overlapping in the fourth overlapping in the fifth overlapping in the sixth. I believe this is something which happens in the evolving of the root races. So this gives an interesting point. The previous root race gets overlapped with the next root race. First and two were independent, but then it happened from the third. The second root left some seeds which helped the birth of the third root race, is what we have seen. But they were otherwise independent, first and second. This concept of overlapping of races took place right through all the races that came into being from the third root race. Overlapping means some people of third also lived with the fourth people lived with the fifth, maybe fifth people will live with the sixth, like that. The overlapping takes place. So this is how the fourth root race happened. The Atlanteans, a very big civilization to talk about. We have tremendous literature on this, and it went under the sea. And before the deluge took place, some people moved out. So that's how we have those people who continue to be there and ushered in the fifth root race. Now we talk about the fifth root race, the Aryans, as we talk about. They emerged and belonged initially to the hemisphere which was there in the north, far north. That's where it started. Before the Atlantean civilization sank into the ocean, got submerged. As I said, Atlanteans, some of its people emigrated to the southern hemisphere. So that's how this fifth root race also moved towards Asia. It started off up in the north, but then moved down to Asia. So the fifth root race, majority of the people who are perhaps living, they belong to the Asian continent. Needless to say, this fifth root race also had its roots in the Atlantean. This goes without saying because of the overlapping concept which we talked about. And some highly spiritually evolved Lemurians, they were born as the sons of wisdom. So they also showed the path for the fifth root people to move forward. So they had personally incarnated these evolved, advanced, spiritually advanced Lemurians. They personally incarnated to guide the fifth root race. This is something which is interesting to note because it's always somebody who is already evolved in the previous race who is coming down helping the next root race. And they talk about the colors of the Aryans. They were made of white, black, yellow, red, brown, and other combination of colors. So all of them shaped and were guided by Vaivasvata Manu. This is it. In the hierarchy we have the Manus. So all these fifth root race were shaped and guided by Vaivasvata Manu. And if you want to know something about Manu, Manu is a term used in Theosophy, especially by Madame Blavatsky in her writings. Period between two Manus, say fourth Manu and the fifth Manu appearing, that is called Manvantara, the gap between the two Manus. And the person who is now taking care of the fifth root race is Vaivasvata Manu, who is the seventh in the order. Vaivasvata Manu is seventh in the order. And each Manu's period is 308 lakh years. So this Manu guides the spiritual head, progenitor, some places they call him the progenitor. He guides the humanity of this root race. Manu is the title given to this compassionate, kind guide. These persons of the fifth root race started worshipping God through anthropomorphic forms. They created their own figure, which they said that was God. They also invented idols to worship the ultimate God. This happened in the fifth root race. We belong to this root race, going through the fifth sub-race of the fifth root race. As of now, that's the position. We have to complete the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh, and then move to the sixth root race, sixth root race. That's quite far off. So, we have seen 5 root races briefly. because if you spend time, each route race will take about 20-30 minutes easily. And then I've selected only such portion which will be of interest to all of us to note down and remember. So the next comes the sixth route race, which we have not seen, which is yet to appear. And the fifth route race will overlap, and the people who will hear will also be there guiding the sixth route race. There is a lot of literature available in the sixth route race. New forms of men will appear. There is a purpose in saying that they will have a different physique. The sixth route race will have a different physique, will have intuition as their faculty. We had the mental intelligence as our faculty, the fifth route race. The sixth route race, it will be the intuition. The sixth principle, which is the Buddhic principle, that will be the faculty which those people would use to live in the sixth route race. It is said that this sixth route race will move out of the physical, and that's why it is special, and will be free of matter. The sixth route race will be free of matter, and they will move out of physical. And then sixth route race may also cast off the physical and take the astral route. They will throw away the physical and embrace the astral route. And this will be located, this route race will be located in North America and California, they say. The seeds of the sixth route race will be planted from the fifth route race. And to develop this sixth route race, the spiritual beings are looking for volunteers to work. The spiritual beings are looking for volunteers to work, and the job of the volunteers will be to facilitate the emergence of the sixth route race. And those of us who are earnest, if we qualify, we may become the volunteers for the sixth route race. That means we have to evolve, maybe unselfishly, leave all that needs to be jettisoned, and perhaps become good enough to become volunteers. So this is the job of perhaps the people who are now living in the fifth route race, to qualify ourselves as volunteers to work in the sixth route race. And interestingly, now we have adepts, but initiates, but then in that particular route race, we have number of initiates, number of adepts. The number will multiply, they say. They will increase. So this is something which is interesting. And they will take forward, these volunteers and the new people who will be born into the sixth route race, they will take it forward for evolution to continue. And then man will perhaps step into the seventh route race too, and we only have brief details, because sixth itself is not a reality to us. There is some information given about the seventh route race. At the end of the seventh route race, 7 by 7, I'm talking about 7, and complete all the 7 sub-races, all men will reach perfection. All men will reach perfection. But do we wait till then, or try in our own way to reach that earlier, is the moot point. So all men have got a chance to attain perfection when we complete the 7 by 7. So the evolution is very steady. It is going out with the divine plan. Like the universe, man has also come from within to without. Universe also we talked about from within to without. That's exactly how man also has progressed. And like it was said in the past, the present is a child of the past, the future is a product of the present. The present is a child of the past, and the future is a product of the present. So we have to live in the present, as it is said, and move into the future with sure steps. We should do it by becoming lighter, by cleansing our vehicles, our upadhis, our vehicles, by living in the present. We will tread the path, feeling lighter, but becoming stronger to achieve our goal of reaching perfection. And the ultimate aim of identifying our soul with the universal soul is what we are trying to achieve. That's the completion of the obligatory journey which Madam Blavatsky talked about, the third fundamental proposition of the cosmogenesis. And what do we do having achieved perfection if we get to that stage? Our work will be to work for the welfare of humanity and man's journey is on. So every human has got the potential to achieve divinity, and man should become divine, transform himself from man to divine. This is, in short, the. Do I have time, Mr. Sunny, to summarize, or it's over?
Yes, sir.
Time? Yeah. So I just thought there are 12 stanzas, but we have touched upon the various I don't want to take more time for them. I'll summarize the stanzas as it is in 2-3 lines. I requested the gentleman to put it into a slide, but it was pouring in Madras, in Chennai, so he could do it. The stanza 1 of Anthropogenesis deals with the indwelling spirit of earth and the separation of the elements, fire, air, water, etc. It deals with that, the stanza 1. And the spiritual matter gets awakened gradually. That's the content of the first stanza. I'm just putting it in 2 lines. It's a lot of slokas and a lot of commentary, but then I'm trying to make it simple. Stanza 2 talks about the beginning of the 4th round attempt to create man. Interestingly, there are 2 attempts made to create man before, and the fire element was not joining, so mind could not be formed. And there was a stage where water men were there. Water men means maybe something, a combination of earth and water. So that was there, but 2 attempts failed previously. So the 4th round, attempt to create man was done in the 2nd stanza. The 3rd stanza talks about the creators of the first root race. The self-born, we said. So who were responsible for their coming into being? The Adams, the Jani Chauhans. So it talks about them. And then the stanza 4 talks about the first root race. And stanza 5, it talks about the second root race, the sweat-born. The first root was self-born, sweat-born. No physical bodies, but both the first and the second root races. I've combined two stanzas, 6 and 7 together. Physical man appears in the third root race. Physical man appears, Lemurian as we call it, he appears in the third root race. And the formation of male and female took place, and the manas came into being, the mind came into being in the third root race. 3 by 5, that's where it came into being. And then stanza 8 talks about apes and anthropoids. Apes are not ancestors of man, says the book. If you see, man preceded is what she said in the. So she very clear, she says, apes are not ancestors of man. Maybe it may go against some other theory of, I don't know, Darwin or somebody, but this is what she says. Stanza 9 and 10 talks about the beginning of the fourth root race, the Atlantean, and then the growth of the Atlantean, and how the Atlantean went under the sea. And stanza 11 talks about prehistoric geography. It's interesting, no? Geography is being discussed in the 11th stanza. Disappearance of the Atlantean race, shifting of the poles has taken place, the equator has shifted. So a lot of things which have happened, and that is captured in stanza 11. And stanza 12 talks about the 5th, 6th and the 7th root race. So I have tried summarizing the journey of man as he appeared, as he moved from race to race, from root race to another root race. So thank you very much for giving me a patient hearing.